Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minute Ministries. There was a cartoon about a kid named Ralph. Now one day Ralph had broken a window in his house. And of course his mother's very upset and sends him to his room. And as he sits in his room, he stares out the window and he laments with these words, "I get blamed for everything I do." Now it sounds a lot like our attitudes today, doesn't it? No one wants to be held accountable for their actions. They try to justify what they did, or they try to deflect and try to get the focus off of them and put it somewhere else. Nothing has changed since the beginning. This has happened since the beginning of human beings. Eve blamed the snake. Adam blamed Eve and even blamed God, trying to get the heat off of them. Now today we do things like a student fails a class, and it's not because the student didn't study and the student wasn't paying attention, it's because the teacher didn't teach it well enough or didn't teach it right. If someone is a criminal, robs a bank, home invasion, murder, or whatever, it's not because that person decided to do those things. It's because the parents weren't loving enough. It's because they were brought up in the bad part of town. It's because they went through a tragic event. It's because dad wasn't there. They find all kinds of reasons, all kinds of excuses as to why it's not their fault. Jail cells are full of people who are, quote, innocent because of what someone else did. And if you're a fan of court shows like I am, when they interview the people after the case is over, they are still trying to justify why it's not their fault and why they shouldn't have to pay that money or why they're still owed that money. People look for any reason, any way they possibly can to try to avoid the consequences of their own words or actions. But the Bible tells us we are to be accountable for what we do. We are to own up for our own actions and words. Jesus said it right away when he was talking about, if someone sins against you, go to that person. And if he listens, you have gained a brother. If he does not listen, take 2 or 3 witnesses. If he still does not listen, bring it to the church. So people are very ready and willing to deflect their accountability. But Jesus tells us we are to be accountable. Now when he says someone sins against you, well, when you sin against someone else and that person comes to you, take ownership of what you have done. That's what he wants us to do. That's a small portion of a whole bigger picture when it comes to accountability. We are to stand up and do the right thing. Jesus held people accountable all the time. He held his own disciples accountable. He held the Pharisees accountable. The crowds that followed him, he held them accountable. The rich young ruler, the woman at the well, the man at the pool of Bethesda. He held so many people. He didn't just help them and feed them and heal them and teach them. He tried to hold them accountable for their own sin, for their own wrong thinking, for their wrong ways. Even for the crowds who were following him, because a lot of them were following him for the wrong reasons. They did not understand who he was, and when he held them accountable for it, they left. Now, we are not to be like that. Followers of Christ are to admit their mistakes, and when someone brings the wrong to them, they say, "Yes, I was wrong, please forgive me, and I will try to make it right." That's what we are to do. That's what God commands, and he wants that for the entire world. So if you are not a follower of Christ and you're listening to this, you are still to be accountable for what you do. And people of Christ, we especially are, because we are to show them the right way to do things. And the right way to do things is to be accountable and be ready to be accountable. Because obviously we are not always right. Most of the time we are wrong. And we need to be ready to face the consequences of that wrongdoing. This has been 5 Minute Ministries, and I'll see you next time.